Right, hello, and welcome to SquawkART. Last year, I put on Exhibition for Chickens at the time when there was I had this sort of feeling of bliss, uh, of things just being that they'll never be the same again. So I could do whatever I wanted. So I did this Exhibition for Chickens. Now that has sort of changed. It's almost the opposite, and this series is kind of filling in the gap where we haven't got Exhibition for Chickens anymore, but maybe we could have something else. Maybe we could have something better, but it's going to be difficult. And my first partner, I suppose, or collaborator in this series is Barry Sykes.
Hey Jared, hello.
Could you explain like a little bit like what you contacted me about and what you were suggesting?
Yeah, so I had followed you. I think I'd been sort of really interested in for sort of way back, but always sort of behind the scenes artist practice ideas. So I'd seen a number of your videos that you'd made with Tate and all sorts of other institutions about videos. I think that's where I first sort of started following you from, because I always really enjoyed the structure of those videos, with how you dealt with different artists and situations. And yeah, then coming forwards to lockdown and everything, obviously, like most artists, trying to work out what your practice, whether your practice is, first few months, practice is irrelevant. We're going through a pandemic, and then things settle down, and you realise something's still going to happen, and it's all quite everyday. It's a new form of everyday. So I was looking for forms of post-pandemic art programming, if you like, because I was teaching a course at University College of the Arts in Farnham. I was teaching a short bit of a course called Contemporary Exhibition Practice, where the previous year I'd led the group, and they put on shows in non-gallery spaces around Farnham and Surrey. And then this year the challenge was, okay, how do we do a lockdown version? So they did a lot of really interesting solutions to sort of real physical space, how to use physical spaces safely, and how to represent them virtually or long distance as well. So that was so your Exhibition for Chickens was a really interesting example for that, and also it appealed to me in a sort of, I suppose, the things I'm interested in, of like, it's an absurd proposition, it's so wrong it just might work. And I guess ultimately as a practitioner, your relationship to your audience is always, however connected you try and make it, it's always a bit like facing a brick wall. And the chickens just seem like such a sort of a resigned format of, like, maybe what if I might as well be showing my work to chickens here. There was a little dose of cynicism to it, but also sort of an utter generosity to what must be your your home life. These are chickens, are part of your family now. It's about looking at that intently. So I found it, and also it's something I'm always drawn to, things that are sort of sprawling and intangible, but summed up in a very small way. I'm fascinated by how big things can be defined in very small, tiny ways, and an Exhibition for Chickens seemed to be a classic example of that. So I had seen a few of the things you'd done, and following the Instagram account, and then I think I saw the film festival, which seemed sort of wonderfully grand, and you'd got, you're interviewing Jeremy Deller on screen for an audience of oblivious, or who knows. The question is, we don't know, chickens. And then I'd been doing a lot of laughter yoga during lockdown. So I'd sort of, one of the ways I'd shifted practice to try things out, to sort of exercise my creative interests and try and find a use value, I suppose, as well, was to do laughter yoga, which is something I've been doing in this get up for a while, which is pretend laughing. I'm also fascinated with when artifice becomes real in its own right, I suppose. It's for a succinct definition of something intangible. And laughter yoga is where you lead a group of people to through fake laughing, like ha ha ha, fake laughing noises. But by the end, if you lead it right, and people are willing to follow you, you'll all be laughing hysterically for real at the end in maybe 10 minutes. So it's like a real sort of magic trick audience participation thing that you do together, and I've been finding it fascinating, and it was really interesting how that stepped onto internet platforms really, really well. So loads of it started up in Zoom groups. I still go to a Zoom laughter yoga group, and lots of it happened, lots of free stuff. You know, of course, also any way of generating some positivity, however you do it, this past couple of years has been really important. And albeit everyone in the room knows that we've made it up out of nothing and we're not really laughing at anything genuinely. So yeah, I don't know. And I'm just ultimately, and we still haven't done it. If I stood in front of your chickens, what would happen? How would I feel? It felt like, in a way, it would really help to unpick some of the dynamics. The reason I keep doing the laughter yoga stuff is because I'm still trying to work out what's happening.
Right.
And it felt like that would be a great way to continue to, because I always try to do it with different audiences. I've done it with one of the first ones was at Tate St Ives, when I was struggling to work out what on earth to do with that audience on a late night Tate event, and then a few years later realised that I thought there was some mileage in this. So what if I did it to lots of different audiences outside of galleries? So I've done it in the Museum of London in front of Neolithic axe heads and skulls, actual skulls of people. I've done it to a group of naturists at a naturist club. We were all naked, to a group of toddlers with Down syndrome and their parents, to a older people's boxercise group in Leighton, I sort of go where I might find a space, and without a lot of pushing, there might be a door open for me to come in, and just in a way, it's sort of seeing who is open to it has been really interesting as well. So likewise, knocking at your door, seeing if you were open to it is another sort of experiment. And you were.
Oh yeah, I am open to it, and I think because in a way it's like, well, whether the chickens are or not, we'll see. But that, I think what you said about presenting something. The reason I did it, or the reason I started doing exhibition for chickens, was because I'd probably always been too scared to show stuff to humans, or to try and do something like properly. The thing about doing exhibition for chickens was like, well, no, that hasn't, as far as I know, that's not been done. So there's not really anything I could do that would be wrong or silly or embarrassing when showing work to chickens. And then so that was sort of kind of how that started. And then I realized that I was doing a lot of things that I probably didn't want to do, like be zany, like have a zany idea, and like, so I sort of had to try and go the other, like try and make it really serious and sort of do it. And then I realized that was kind of an artifice. So then it sort of built up, and I sort of probably thought that a lot of things that that an artist like you might think about over the course of a career, I was kind of thinking about in this very short period of a month or whatever in lockdown. And then when that kind of ended, now I'm left with, well, what do I do with all those thoughts in some way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny you said you've set up one of the most ridiculous things that could undermine your professional reputation, and you did it as a way of not being judged. It's quite funny too. But that equal, and you've seen, of course, loads of artists have responded in different ways, and weirdly, what I found, weirdly sort of shoot or compromise their practice to enter that in a way they would never normally in a garage. Have a printout of my painting, or here's a tiny thing I wouldn't have made like this before. It's really lovely how people have left a lot of their self-consciousness and professionalism, I suppose, behind.
Yeah, but because I've seen there's stuff that I've hated in sort of in the real world, like things like that where things are done yeah, think about like printing things out on A4 and sticking them up. It's not that different from where like, there was a campaign that the Art Fund did a few years ago, where they sort of said, "Oh, it's like the and it was called something like the Great British Art Exhibition or something like that." It probably wasn't, but it was that sort of thing. And they just put
Yeah.
billboard posters up of like reproductions of art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not sites, nothing made particularly for it, just blown up big and adverts basically. And I thought, well, that's really shit, especially like calling it an exhibition. But on the scale of doing it in a field and everyone just being very clear from the start of what the limitations are and why it's happening, and like why it has to be printed out on a A4 printer and stuff like that, that like to me that made it more worthwhile. And you know, I was surprised that people still wanted to do it, but I think that's probably why.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about, you were saying it was something that hadn't been done before, and that I did find it. It certainly feels like an unusual format and a test, you know, an uncomfortable situation to try stuff out on, and a new situation. But I couldn't help thinking about, well, like for well, two things, I suppose. One of or of how people have incorporated animals in art. So like the classic Joseph Beuys with his hare explaining art to a dead hare, or whatever the exact title is. It feels like a legacy of that. But but again, like we never really knew what the hare got out of it, so
No.
it's still worth persevering with this inquiry. And and then also, like, is it Janis Cornelis who brought the horses into the gallery and just and reined them up, like
Um,
tied them up to the edge of the gallery? And you were sort of, my thinking was always about that what's the not the viewer's experience of the gallery of the horses, but the horses' experience of the viewers.
mm,
I don't know. And there's a number of other artists who I know of who are doing things at the moment in a kind of ecological sense of how we our relationship with the natural world is obviously so dysfunctional. How can we better listen?
mm.
Um, which is kind of optimistic and romantic, as well as like, well, you know, we're at a crisis point, so we've got to try everything. And what is it to commune with animals, or listen to the grass growing or something like that? You
Yeah,
know, what
I
is
mean, I
what
definitely thought with our chickens, it's like obviously we feed them, we water them, we give them space to graze or whatever it is, you know. But there was definitely like, well, yeah, you do that, but can you do more? Can you entertain them?
yeah, yeah,
Show them something of our culture? Um, and I mean, you can. It's obvious because
yeah, yeah,
but
exactly.
it's
You can
like,
show them
what do they benefit? Or but equally, it's like when you know, if you're like you say at the start, like what is your audience and how do they react and how do you know that you've connected or whatever? And that's why I guess I'm interested in. There's a lot of your work does involve sort of close contact with audience and interaction in the sense of like a group, you know, running a group or
yeah, yeah,
being embedded in a
yeah. I was thinking about it, what you were saying about what can you show the animals. I think it's also about what do you gain from showing stuff to them as well. So it's you are also a participant. So what you can, the the imperviousness of the animal, or our inability to really understand, communicate with them, means that you have to then internalize that conversation. So I think in a micro way, like when I'm trying to lead them in laughter and build on what we've done, I'm getting, what feedback am I getting back in order to move on? You know, you need some way with an audience to calibrate your your interaction with the audience and build on it and respond to it. So how would I feel of that in the room? But also, yeah, if you're just uh, then it also has this element of someone is doing this. What does it mean that I've heard that someone is doing it? You know, someone is trying to make the chickens laugh, or laughing in front of the chickens and them not laughing, or what is even a, I don't think, and chickens are not on my list of animals that laugh.
mm,
There's a there's a sort of scientific list that monkeys, dogs, rats, laugh, and dolphins, but they're not. I've not seen evidence that they are
Oh,
identified to have kind of laughter mechanism. So what would I read?
ducks always sound like they're laughing when they do a sort of big.
Yeah, which for laughter yoga is all you just need
Yeah.
to sound like you're laughing. But in terms of that genuine psychological switch, I don't think it's something else behind the sound,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. So it's like that question with them, but also how do you deal with something that has the pretense of that loop, but is much more intangible. I don't know. So we'll find out, I guess, is the thing and I don't know whether how much of that journey will be possible within do I give it my usual 20 minutes, or is it something where, like with any group, you get more out of it the more frequent you work with them? So once a month, and then we understand each other more. And I mean, you must have a relationship. You've built a relationship with chickens. Sorry, just a segue from your initial question, but do you have more in a kind of one-to-one sense? Have you built up a relation? Have they got names? Is one
they've got names. I always forget the names.
Better than the other, or character and things like that? What do you get back from them?
I mean, my children are probably better at kind of showing you who's who and like what they're like.
Great.
But there's some real characters. I mean, there's Frisbee. There's what are the names of the Cleopatra, the cockerel, Melissa. I mean, there's loads.
How many? Sorry.
There's about 25.
25. Okay.
So it was easy when they were inside. So there was an avian flu warning came out. So you had to keep the chickens in. They weren't allowed to go out where they could meet other birds and spread, pick up diseases. So we put them in the garage, and that's how I could rig up the screens so that we could have screenings for them, and then set up the Moving Image Festival. And that meant that they were pretty much they were a captive audience. They would be in the beam of the projector, and they would be hearing the soundtrack, and they would be kind of immersed in it. And like what I know of their vision is that they're seeing a big, like most birds do, eyes on the side of their heads, and they're seeing a lot. So they're they're in that space now.
What ideal viewer?
Yeah, but then now, of course, they're not, because they're as soon as the avian flu situation calmed down, obviously you want them free ranging as soon as possible. So they're out in the field, and they spread out. We've got quite a big field and a garden, and some of them end up in the garden. Some of them are like far flung corners of the field. Some of them in like the goat house. And that's the other thing I thought it's worth mentioning, is that we've got goats as well.
Right.
And in fact, goat yoga is a thing. It's not it's like I think you use a goat. It's not, you wouldn't do like goat yoga for the goats, but a goat sort of standing on you or something like that. Or
I'll look it up.
Not entirely sure, but yeah, it's definitely a thing. So I suppose what I'm saying is that with Exhibition for Chickens, it was not just for the chickens, because in the end, like, goats wandered in and they were looking at it too.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that there is there's a cross. You can't stop goats wandering in. You couldn't stop cats wandering in and having a look.
Sure. Okay.
And so it just might be worth thinking about that.
That's good.
Say again?
It's all about widening participation, so that's good.
Yeah, lots of different sections of society can join in and bring their own experiences to it, I guess. The goats did eat quite a lot of the A4 sheets of paper that were pinned up.
Okay.
It was fine. So yeah, but I suppose that was my worry, was that if you were uh, leading a session, you know, I wouldn't be certain that that they wouldn't just like wander off and be here, there, and everywhere.
That's the case. That's the case with human audiences as well, though. I mean, to not as much, but there is a parallel. It's interesting that it's not. This isn't the opposite. This is maybe just an intensification of those dynamics, which is why I find it quite interesting. So, yeah, to think about it for goats and cats is what I hadn't done. So that's interesting. That can inform things somehow. I don't know how. Um, but yeah, I guess when I said like the viewer, the ultimate viewer, like we can't see round, like our eyes don't do that. So it's amazing that they can. So
Yeah,
it may be, our assumption with an audience is that they have to be looking at you to be engaging with you. The chickens don't. They can be facing that way, looking over that way, but maybe I'm still in there. Their hearing and
yeah.
their vision is really interesting to think about.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. Like they're not going to be facing forwards, but equally they might be. And I think time of day is also interesting. Like they're more relaxed in the evening.
Okay.
They're more active in the morning, and what else? Someone asked what their attention span is, and I don't know.
Yeah, good question, Sophie.
So yeah, it's a good question. It's worth looking.
Yeah, how do you even measure that? That sounds like it's Googleable, doesn't it? But
yeah, it does. I mean, that's
maybe we'll find out.
But I don't know. I mean, I think I think it would be interesting. And I think the other thing I was going to ask you is whether, because of course humans live here as well, and the other part of Exhibition for Chickens that was that I enjoyed and I thought was interesting was the domestic aspects of it, of like bringing art into our sort of domestic life, and sort of living with it as part of the daily routine. So, our sort of normal, like the chores of like feeding the chickens and going in and topping up their water and cleaning them out and stuff, was sort of complicated by the fact that there were some site-specific interventions, or like I had to avoid sort of damaging something as I was working, and we can obviously like go out and look at it as well at the same time. And so would you imagine that perhaps humans could join in and take part, or would you prefer if it was exclusively for animals?
I mean, in a sense, more like it's always more the merrier, but and no pun intended. But it's not about it's always just about who gravitates to participate, I suppose, in the in the activity. And some people drift away, some people are drawn in. So even if I'm invited somewhere, normally some people are still either weren't aware it was going on or are still not sure whether they're going to participate. So that flow, ebb and flow of who decides how much or how little in the moment they're going to give to it is interesting. So I wouldn't want to rule that out. But having said that, there is something about the controlled conditions of just me and a group of chickens, or maybe you in an observer capacity, that feels like that is worth paying close attention to, and ridding the situation of the normal human sort of triggers that might factor in. So but there's no so I'll think about that. But
well, I wonder whether it's worth. I think that probably what humans might bring to it first is a little bit of kind of awkwardness and maybe not a helpful type of emotion, I guess, like a bit of embarrassment, a bit of awkwardness, at least at first.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I don't think is present in poultry. So it might be a good idea to stick to the chickens, and maybe we film it, or set up some cameras or something so that we can just have a record of it,
Yeah.
and maybe, but perhaps keep it as intimate as we can, just you and the chickens. But perhaps,
Yeah.
if you're here and there were some people interested in having a laughter yoga session, then perhaps like that would be a cool thing to do. But
Yeah. I mean that's in its nature as well, is that you can, and if I'm traveling to you as well, of course, it's not and I'm there and you are the hosts and you are the institution, then and as I say, it's about trying it with different groups, and to go into someone's home to do it. Yeah, so there's definitely loads of reasons why to do that too, and to do overlaps and mixes of a group of we get to try 3 different formats, maybe humans, animals, and humans and animals. It's yeah, sure, there's no reason why all of those things aren't worth examining just as closely. But yeah, that's really interesting. I'd not thought about that.
I was going to ask you about like this idea, because there's you referred to us as the institution, which I think is pretty it's a kind thing to do. And I like on your, so if anyone's sort of interested, visiting Barry's website is really fascinating. It's one of the best artists' websites I've visited, I have to say, because it's like you really.
Oh, thank you.
I think every project is documented and has a really clear and just an excellent description, and there's multiple kind of photographs of each thing and like how it's developed, and you get a really good idea of like kind of what you're about from going through that, and it's really interesting. Like it's just it's well done. But yeah, it's really good. And I enjoyed, but one of the like really interesting things is the CV section, which talks about like the relationship between you as an artist and the people that commission and pay for or don't pay for the work that you do. So can you describe it quickly? That's sort of how you've laid that out.
On my CV, I just try and, partly through because I find it fascinating, and I sort of always try and work out what a website's for, or what documentation for, why it's existing, not things as a given professional format, but why would this be useful to me, to you, to the person? I suppose as you said, sort of working with different, closely with different, interacting with people in different ways. Why wouldn't I be interested in how that works as well? So on my website, the CV page, it's color code. There are color coded buttons you can press where you can see my CV broken down into plain, in just regular black and white, where it looks like anyone else's, and the second version is broken down into whether I was paid for it, or I just got expenses, or I got nothing and did it pro bono, as I say, which a lot of the art world asks artists to work in a pro bono capacity. Ironically, I use that term sarcastically because the finances are completely inverted from the normal pro bono structure. The institutions have the money, the artists don't. But anyway, so I feel like that's worth declaring. And then the other one is how I got the opportunity. Was it someone I already knew, or someone I approached them, or they approached me? And so that's kind of interesting as well. Spoiler alert: most opportunities happen via people I already knew. Even though the dream is that your inbox is constantly being arriving emails out of the blue saying, I saw your work, I saw you in that thing, I'd love you to be involved in this, but that doesn't happen. So it's longer personal conversations. But yeah, that's that.
I suppose I find that honesty very. I suppose I don't know, where's that going? Because like, whose benefit is that for?
Right.
It's your benefit.
Yeah.
And it's
it's probably for, I like to think it's for, it's me. It's a bit cathartic for me. It's also a kick up the arse for me to go, why aren't you getting paid for work, and why aren't people approaching you when they've just seen the work? Why do they have to meet you first? And you have why does it take you kind of building up these long-term relationships for those to happen? I suppose I'd rather it wasn't as it is, in a way. And then also, I feel very much beholden to, as someone who occasionally teaches, to students coming out of education and people being led into the dream world of the art world, lured into the art world by art education and whatever, so that I feel it's worth, it shouldn't be a rare moment of honesty and openness, but it sort of is. So to them. But it may well, of course, be counterproductive professionally, and some people see it and I may be burning some bridges. Who knows? You never know.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I was just reflecting on like a friend conversation I had with friends like years ago, where they were talking about loads of my friends went to art school, but none of them are artists, and a lot of them are saying like you basically go through art school with the idea that you're sold the idea that you will become an artist, and that's such a lie, really, isn't it? Like it's a complete lie, and I wonder why that persists.
Well, they get away. I think you get away with it because it's just a woolly term that you can, you'll leave with the mind of an artist or something, but you won't. If what they mean, if you set up a professional studio that can pay for you to live in the city, and afford to live in the city you want to, then it's a lie. Yes, it's fundamentally a lie that they're not selling you something sustainable, but I think underneath it is a generosity. It's so often clouded with the smoke and mirrors of the art world that is so infectious, and we'll get lured into doing that. So yeah, I don't know.
Well,
this is
it's another subject, I guess. In lockdown, when I did Exhibition for Chickens, it was almost like money didn't exist. It was like it was no longer. It was a period where the mortgage was covered by the government, or at least deferred, wasn't it? It wasn't covered, but like it was deferred. There was, furlough money. There was nothing to buy really for a little bit. You were just at home. So it was like this kind of, as described in the intro, this kind of feeling of everything being turned on its head a little bit, and this sort of blissful feeling, and you sort of just do anything. It didn't last very long, but there was no money involved. Apart from I had to buy some printer ink, which was ridiculous. I'd sort of got.
That might be living in the middle of the countryside for you. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that where I was.
No, sure. I think it very much is. It's like living in the countryside and being so where we are. There's no like you can't just pop out without like getting in the car and driving out somewhere. So there was a sort of we were very much here and like walking places and but not like So it was it was a kind of it just felt very unreal, and obviously you didn't encounter people in the same way that you would have done in a town, like doing your daily exercise or something. You would go out and there'd be no one around. It felt very surreal, and I think that's partly that was why I was reaching out, I guess, to bring
exactly likewise.
In terms of like money and stuff, it wasn't a consideration. And there's another thing that is interesting about talking to you about that CV and the kind of the honesty of it is, again, it's slightly different, but much as I have like an abject feeling towards like zany stuff, like I've always felt like I don't want to see how things are made. Like when crowdfunding started, and people started doing it for exhibitions a long time, about 10 years ago or something, I'd always feel like it was such a kind of awful idea, because when you're crowdfunding for something, you're again like you're saying it's fantastic, it's going to be brilliant, you want to invest in it, and then we're going to put on this thing. Whereas my experience of going to exhibitions is that you pop in, you might like it, you might not, you're not committing to anything, and you're going to go. So when someone's like trailing it for 6 months and trying to raise money, and it's cost them £2,000 to hire the stuff that they need to do that. Like for me, that was like too much. I don't want to know. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know that it's costing money. I want to see the finished result. And yet, when I was doing exhibition for chickens, and then seeing things like that you're doing, and it's very much about like you're showing the working, and these things are kind of open. I got a lot of stuff out of that as well, and I'm quite interested in these like very much like contrasting experiences, and my mind being kind of changed by stuff.
Yeah, I suppose for me, if I try to do make the making of it that foreground it, so it's a kind of theatrical version of behind the scenes in a way that it's not. If the sculpture, if I'm not, like for example, some sculpture things I'm gluing together at the moment out of some wood. I don't want to have I don't want to just make it nice at the front, rough at the back, and then show you the back. I'd rather make it rough all over, and that be the ethos of how it was made. It's quite a succinct description maybe of that. That it's not about there is a secret, and then I will show you the secret. It's that if we all just, and with the laughter yoga is I explained at the start, we all know that we're going to be fake laughing, and then and we'll move through it, and it'll get more energetic as we go through, and you will then start laughing at yourself and at each other, and then we'll start laughing for real. There's no mystique, but that still doesn't mean at the end of it we're all going, what on earth just happened? How did that work? And what did it do and what didn't it do? I still don't know. Am I happy now? I don't know if I am. I feel good, but what does it mean? So if so there isn't a behind, I suppose. It's kind of it's laid out rather than layered. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was trying to figure out what the difference is, and I think that's
I've made that up now, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the case that you're sort of the whole is the thing. It's not the case that there's a kind of, and I think that's in a way that's the same with this conversation and what we're doing.
Well, sure, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah. All right, cool. Well, actually, we've been talking for 45 minutes, so I think we should have another meeting, and we should go out and see the site. I don't know where you are in your professional laughter yoga uniform, aren't you? So are you?
Yeah. Well, I only because I thought it might be useful to sort of. I know, as you said, we hadn't really met properly. So is it weird that the first time we meet face to face, you can't see much of my face? But but also in terms of the visuals, it's quite useful. I thought it'd be useful to be in the get up, because that then you can think about, like, it was interesting when I was even putting the photos together for the Instagram images of like the correlation between a chicken and a clown face. They're not dissimilar, and I hadn't thought of it before. So in a way, some of these sort of visual things, a kind of beak and a coxcomb and a ruff, weirdly, suddenly it's like, oh, maybe the clown is based on a chicken, and I'd never thought of that before, and I'd never read about that connection. But there's something, and they are sort of, jerky, hysterical, emotional, or who knows, not emotion, but or maybe it is, but there's something about that maybe there is the big fluffy legs, the light trousers, the comedy shoes. Maybe there's something in that. So already, I'm glad I've only just thought of those things. So there's something of the dress rehearsal why that is useful as well as the development meeting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's cool. Yeah, you can think about. Yeah, again, they're all different. I mean, it's sort of obvious to say, but all the chickens are different. And some of them just look nuts. Like they look incredible. And some of the cockerels, very extravagant with feathers and So there is something funny and clown-like about them. Now you mention it. All right. Well, okay. Should we do an exercise? Is that?
Yeah, sure. That's a good way to finish. Because I don't think. Have you done any? Did you do any? Because this is. I was going to say this is the sort of hasty get up which I was using for one of the forms of laughter yoga I did during lockdowns. Was I did for a couple of months at the end of last year. I would do a quick Friday session. So I'd be in the studio, and then at 5 o'clock we'd do 10, 15 minutes, and I would just throw. This is kind of easy to just throw on.
Yeah.
I think some of the other photos you saw briefly earlier was there's a clown makeup version as well.
Right.
Which obviously is more labor intensive, but again has its own sort of methodical, ritualistic method of when you put it on and you feel. The method of putting it on takes you somewhere for myself, but equally I like the kind of hastily combining it together. This stuff is on a hook on the wall, and I can grab it 2 minutes before we were meeting and get into a character.
And is it like normal yoga that you can sort of do it by yourself? Would you do this by yourself, like in a mirror or something, and would it give you what's the benefit?
You can definitely you can do it, because you're still if you stand there and it is possible to do it on your own. The exercises, and yeah, it's a good idea. Let's finish with one quickly, but because I don't know if you've done any before.
No, I've seen recording of what you've done, but I didn't take part.
Well, the recordings are there, so you can take part if you like. You could have joined me live, or they're people. I know people do watch them back and do little sessions whenever they need it. But yeah, a lot more happens if you do it with one other person. There's just something about that gap and the bouncing back and anticipating each other that's something really electric kind of is going on there in that moment. And then the more people you throw in, the more interesting it gets. And yeah, there's all the variables of each different person, of course.
Okay.
So, but yeah, equally you do it on your own. I've only done it on my own.
What is
for the last year?
So I'm up
in the sense that,
but I just wondered what will it give me?
Yeah, I was just going to say I've done it because I've only done it on screen for the last year and a half. In a sense, I have done it on my own. So there is that level of it as well, that you are still able to, against the odds, put something on prop your phone up, type, log into something, and then you can trigger it. But it needs that trigger of maybe something else, even if it's just the internet. But it's said to be. They say your mind can't tell the difference between real and fake laughter. So if you start doing it, the body, the cardio system, the brain triggers, the chemicals, they start to fire up because they're familiar with the normal triggers of laughter. And then the kind of innate sense of human awkwardness that you find this ridiculous, you might start chuckling along at yourself, and then something's blurred. And are you laughing at yourself or laughing at the situation? And then if you're laughing, and we've got you there. Or if there's a group of people, you might be laughing because everyone else is laughing in a room, and you know how infectious that is. There's almost like, I better laugh because everyone else is laughing on a subconscious level.
Yeah.
So
and laughter beneficial.
And laughter. Well, I mean, I'm not a evangelical about it. I just continually I'm still want to find out more about what happens in different situations with it. But it is said that it can increase your immune system, your pain thresholds, and generally switch your outlook from negative to positive. So it can put after sessions, people always say they feel great afterwards, or there are always people who want to come up to me and say that. A self-selecting group, of course, but some people feel awkward and don't get it, and are at the back with their arms crossed. But there is something about it. You leave with a spring in your step. It's a kind of trigger. It's almost this. What I like is that there's this kind of mechanical way of turning it on that you might not have realised. Such a lot of effort is put into doing things to make you feel better about yourself, about the world. But there is a shortcut too.
All right, cool. Well, shall we have I wonder if anyone else would like to join us and add their invite themselves to take part in this live.
They could join in, of course. They could watch.
I'll let you in, or you can just watch.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, please, please do join in if you'd like. You can select.
We'll just do one. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was just saying. I bet no one will. But if they want to, they can. But I'll do it.
Great, that's it. That's fine. I said all it takes is 2 people,
Right.
and yeah, by all means, do it in your own home. That people who are watching this live can take part, or if you are watching it back as a recording, then you can then feel free to join in. It's basically a breathing exercise, breathing and movement, which most people have got some level of ability to do. You give it as much or as little as you're able to, or as you feel inclined to. So. Yeah, normally I would lead a say 10, 5 at a push, 10's good, 15, 20 minutes is great session to take you through a little bit of the history and then some examples and then the exercises. But one I really like, which is a great sort of, it distills it down, is my favorite one is called the 1 meter laugh. And it involves your hand. If you can reach out your arms, then you can do this one as well. But any method of sort of increasing the movements from a small movement to a larger movement, whatever you're capable of, let's do that. So we'll start with the smallest, and we'll end up with your biggest range of movement possible. So we start with our arms outstretched. You might not be able to see me; they'll go off the screen, but you can see where they're ending up. They're over here. And we bring our right hand over to our left hand, and we go, we breathe in. It's all about breathing. So we do a nice deep breath first, in and out, and in again, just to prepare the lungs. And we do a little laugh. Here we do a little unconvincing laugh. Try and feel a little smile on your face as you do it, and a narrowing of the eyes. Then you move your hand to your wrist and give it a little bit more welly from the diaphragm. Little more force. Elbow now, a little bit more movement in the body. More movement. Shoulder, really from the lungs here. And then all the way across. Brilliant, brilliant, and stop. Okay, so there we go. So you feel a bit silly. You've done a thing, but yeah, in that distance, yeah, there's all sorts of there's a and yeah, we'll end on a bit of laughter yoga is all about pretend positivity, and the mantra of laughter yoga goes like this. So do this with me. We go with me. It's a clapping thing. We're going to clapping, chanting mantra. So we'll go very good.
Very good.
Join me. Very good.
Very good.
Yay!
Yay!
So again, together. Very good. Very good. Yay! Great. Okay, that is laughter yoga. That in a nutshell, laughter yoga. So, yeah. Well, I look forward to our next meeting. Let's arrange that. Jared, thanks everyone who joined us.
Yeah,
that's been really, 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 really useful. I've got.
No, it has been. So we'll do something outside. In maybe 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. We'll figure it out. But yeah,
great.
And it's been really, really interesting, and I will endeavour to sort of. I'll keep an eye on the chickens. I think so the questions that came up were attention span, and then also like any signs of laughter.
Yeah, I suppose response. How do they respond to you is a question, really, because this is just all about responding.
Yeah.
How do they respond to you and them and each other?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Nice one. Well, thanks again, and I will see you soon.
Great. Thanks so much, Jared. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Still here. Okay. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that. Technical difficulties meant that oh, here we go. Look. That work? No, that hasn't worked. Anyway, I'm just messing around now, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, I'll see you all again for the next meeting, and we'll go outside, meet the chickens, And if anyone's got any questions or concerns in the meantime about the idea of delivering laughter yoga for chickens, then you can let me know by DM or in the comments when this goes up on IGTV. All right, bye.